What's good, y'all? It's Brian back with another Blurting While Dad live stream. So here's the thing. I've been heavy into the politics tonight, and I wanted to lean a little bit more into the nerd stuff. I don't know how to turn this off, but as you can see, I do have a little link if you see it below. That's my community where I teach people how to do their marketing and stuff. I've partnered with another marketing agency, and I'm the message, he's the machine. I tell you what to say and how to say it. He teaches you how to put the systems in place to get the most bang for your buck. And so if you want to click the link and learn more about marketing, join the Foundry. So um, I've been heavy off into the politics thing. The entire Jasmine Crockett thing was kind of my entry point into Threads, and it's like ecosystem of communicating. And I think I'm going to be moving most of my political conversations and discourse over to Threads, just because I feel like it's more productive than the shit show that you see over on X or Twitter or wherever you want to call it. But I've been heavy into the politics, y'all. And there's so many different things to discuss regarding this administration and its all out assault on um, the concept of the rule of law. I'm going to call it a concept, um, just because it almost feels like a social contract at this point that one side is choosing to ignore. The laws for thee, none for me kind of thing, where as long as you have enough money and influence in wherever you're at, the laws do not apply to you. And that's the world we're rolling with. I mean, like, I don't understand. Like, people are kind of shocked by this entire Epstein thing. I'm shocked that people are shocked. Um, and I know I said I wasn't going to talk politics, but I am going to do a little bit. I'm surprised that people are surprised by the entire Epstein thing. I'm going to get back into it. I had to take a break from my own mental health of doing the digging and research and looking up stuff on the Epstein case, just because, and reading through the documents that have been released, just for my own mental health. I did leave the world of case management where I would see abuse neglect cases all the time. I left that for a reason, and reopening and relitigating a lot of that stuff going back through the Epstein files is pretty traumatic. So I'm taking a little bit of a chill on that piece of it. I lived that life. I worked in that life. I worked with kids and families for almost 20 years in different capacities, and I've seen some pretty horrific stuff. And so just to give myself a little bit of a detox from it, I'm going to take a break from trying to find out what you're talking about. Well, I mean, stick around, you will. I'm basically setting the stage for the show and talking about how this week I'm not going to be going through what I've kind of the stuff I've been pulling from the Epstein files and stuff. I need a break from it, just because that was the world I worked in. I worked in abuse neglect cases, worked with kids and families, trying to find safe spaces for kids who have been um, uh, who have been abused in different things, and I need a break. Like, I had to give myself a break. So we're gonna talk nerd stuff. We're gonna talk comic books. We're gonna talk Stephen King books today. So if that's what you're down for, stick around. But yeah, like I said, this whole political system right now, I'm mad that people are mad and shocked that having enough money in, that the idea of having enough money insulating you from consequences is new. Like, I don't know if y'all just got here, if y'all knew, but that's kind of been the game in not just America, in the world since forever. The people that have the money and power pretty much dictate the laws. They also dictate history. They end up telling you what is historical fact and what's not historical fact. History is kind of written by the people in charge, and everybody else just kind of exists in it. So this Epstein stuff, I'm mad that people are shocked about the insane power, the insane misuse of power regarding it, because that's just the world we exist in. High profile people get away with shit all the time. So anyway, so this week we're gonna talk comic books. I'm pivoting hard, and I'm really trying to stay away from the political stuff this week, just because give myself a break. But I had to get that one off my chest. So kind of catching up where we're at. I'm as y'all know, I've been deep into the Absolute Batman stuff, right? Like, deep into what Scott Snyder's doing with Absolute Batman. And I'm not a huge like I'm a Batman fan, but I'm not a super fan of Batman. Like I can take or leave some of his some Batman runs. My favorite stuff has always been Snyder's stuff with the character because I feel like he does some interesting new things with it. And Absolute Batman is no exception to that. Um, and he's actually got me invested in Batman books, which I haven't been that invested in a long time. You know, I haven't been this invested in a Batman ongoing Batman series since I was a little kid. I used to buy, the little 3 packs of DC comic books at Kmart. I'm aging myself, I'm sorry. And so what Scott Snyder's doing with Batman, nothing but props for me from me. He's making Absolute Batman into an absolute. It's like a horror book. It's like it reads like a, a horror book. And the issue, I don't know what number it is, the one with the latest run or the latest arc with introducing Absolute Poison Ivy is no exception. She looks like a monster. It's something out of your worst nightmares regarding plants with mouths and teeth. It plants with mouths and teeth are just a no. Like that's just a no. That's nightmare fuel. That is a no line for me. I don't want to see plants with teeth. And basically, Absolute Poison Ivy is like her whole body is just different formations of plants with teeth, plants with teeth and eyeballs. And she's pretty scary. Now, she's not necessarily a villain, and that's the thing I'm getting to. And spoilers if you haven't read the book, if you haven't read the latest issue of Absolute Bat or the latest couple issues of Absolute Batman, um, I'm about to spoil some shit for you, so I'm sorry. Um, the entire thing with Absolute Poison Ivy is she is not a villain. She's far from a villain. She's just another victim of basically Absolute Joker. And the entire Arc M system. So she is not villainous. She's actually trying to get revenge on Absolute Joker, and take the entire organization down. But she has a different way of doing it. So essentially, she takes over a building in Gotham, and they tell her whole backstory, super tragic. Her and her mom, how she lost her, how her mom died. She started her research so that she could save her mom from, I think it was cancer or whatnot. And it was really a tragic story. And a lot of tragedy is really the building blocks of the absolute universe, like the darker side of things, where it's really this drumbeat of, yes, there's hope, but it's also hopeless. And so let me find a picture of Absolute Poison Ivy so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Just a mass of teeth and leaves and eyeballs. And it's scary. And I'm glad that they didn't try to glam her up. They played around with it a little bit. You could tell where she had the fake versions of her. The fake versions of her, were the traditional femme fatale kind of Poison Ivy, um, where the ones that you see, and there's a couple of different pictures I can go through here. So I'll pop them up on screen here. The ones that you can kind of see, they really tried to glam, like they tried to pretend like she was glammed up, if I'm going to say it. So I'll show you the image that they had. That's kind of the teaser image, which is one of the fake Poison Ivies. Okay, where we at? Yeah. So like the fake Poison Ivy is this. Like she's one of the fake Poison Ivies. Like this one, the glammed up one, beauty queen kind of Poison Ivy. And that's been the story of how they presented Poison Ivy through the years in the mainline DC universe. Yeah, she's a mutant plant monster, but she's always like presented as really pretty, right? Well, this version of Poison Ivy is a fake. Like this is not her. This is not what she looks like. This, like I said, this version, and that's kind of blurry. Hopefully it clears up. This version is a little bit close, is actually who the character is of Poison Ivy. So I'm pulling up the tab here so you guys can see who she is. She is not shown as glamorous or anything. Like I said, She is a mix of leaves and teeth, which is pretty horrifying. She looks like something out of Parasite. If you've ever read the book Parasite. And so, and I think it was an intentional thing. A lot of the villains in Absolute Batman are monstrous, um, and she's no exception. I think Snyder came out and said that the next arc is going to be Absolute Scarecrow, and Absolute Scarecrow has the highest body count of all the villains in the Absolute universe right now. And if he has a higher body count than the Joker, that's crazy. What's up? What's up? What's up, Mia? How you doing? I'm subbed. All right, all right. Thanks for the sub. Yeah, like I said, I'm all invested in the Absolute universe and the Absolute version of Poison Ivy. I like the more monstrous versions of her. Now, there's a disconnect because I don't want to make it seem like this is total, like just me completely hyping it up without any. Because this issue did kind of give me a little bit of pause, just because I feel like there's a little disconnect with the story that they've established so far in the universe. So I'll get to that here. But as you guys know, I've been rocking with Absolute Batman so far, but this issue really gave me pause with this last one with Poison Ivy and kind of the conclusion of her arc. Poison Ivy she's split, like she's a monster, and it's completely altered her cells, where she has control of her cells and it's merged with this plant life thing. And the last human piece of her is her heart. Like that's the last part of her that hasn't been replaced by the accident that she got into, because all other biological components of her have been replaced with whatever this plant matter stuff is. Comic book science, y'all. So her heart's the last piece, and in this book, in the climax of it, she basically said she knows who Bruce is, she knows who Batman is, she knows she is able to tap into his memories or whatnot, and they kind of have this connection where she's saying, you need to join me so we could take down the man that's created, the man that hurts your friends, the man that is destroying our world. She wants to team up to take down Absolute Joker, and Batman essentially kind of ransoms it and says, listen, if you do not if you do not stop and let go of these officers, because they had a bunch of cops in there, if you don't stop what you're doing, I'm going to take this sonic rifle that I have and blow your heart away and destroy your heart. And so she relents because she doesn't want to lose the last piece of her humanity. And so she does what Bruce asked her to do, and he still blows her heart away and essentially kills her. Like, she's not dead, but the last remaining human component of her is dead. And I understand more times than not, Batman does make his own villains, but it seems to be a real disconnect between this and the Batman annual, where we actually got where he got his no killing rule. And I know it's a different writer. I can't remember who wrote. I know Snyder didn't write that Absolute Batman annual, but they did a pretty decent story. It was like a flashback. It was a flashback that kind of showed where Batman got his no killing rule, and it was really a well thought out turn. And he got his no killing rule after he killed a bunch of neo-Nazis, which was amazing, and I was there for it. It was incredible. On the edge of my seat, cheering loudly. He absolutely just made a bunch of neo-Nazis into mincemeat, setting them on fire, chopping them to pieces, all kinds of other stuff. It was beautiful. But David Warren Johnson wrote the annual side of it, and basically it establishes no killing rule after he killed after he killed a bunch of neo-Nazis and maimed them and really messed them up. And here's the thing: Absolute Batman will not kill you, but he will take you to the brink and make you wish that you were dead. That's Absolute Batman's kind of MO. Like, he is a big son of a gun. He's like 6'9", 6'10", 450 pounds. And if he touches you, he's going to hurt you. And he has no problem gouging out people's eyes, spraying them in the face with acid, chopping off limbs, arms, and whatnot. He just won't kill you. He'll just make you wish that you did not survive. And so that's been kind of the thing. But then they had the flashback where he actually did kill a bunch of neo-Nazis in revenge for how they were treating a town full of migrants and whatnot. And he basically had a moment where um, a priest that had a lot that had saved him from that same group of gang earlier in the day was trying to save that gang from him, and he kind of got a glimpse of himself, and really, had kind of this existential crisis about what would his father think, because his father was all about helping people and healing people, which I think we're going to find out that wasn't necessarily the complete case, because they did introduce that absolute version of the Court of Owls, and his mom is in the Court of Owls, and they've been talking about his mom and dad were revolutionaries, and I think in the Absolute Universe, the Court of Owls is probably the revolutionary group in the Absolute Universe. But anyway, he got a no killing rule, which was pretty dope, and I like the way that they did it. So now we jump till now, where he's facing down Poison Ivy. Um, the last remaining part of her that's like surviving and actually has her personality as her heart, and she complies, she does what he asked her to do, and he still blasts her heart away, essentially killing her, but she's not dead, but he killed the real part of her, and I feel like there was a disconnect there. And maybe it's an editorial thing. I know that sometimes a writer may not agree with what another writer does with the character of the book that they're writing, and maybe that was kind of a reset to that. I'm having a hard time kind of digesting that side of it, but it is what it is. We'll see what happens. He created his own villain because she is pissed off at him. she she's mad as shit at him, and it's really kind of it's scary because you pissed off a gigantic plant monster woman who has teeth all over her. It's not going to turn out well for you. And so I'm interested to see what they do. I think Absolute Scarecrow's coming up next. We still have yet to really see what Deathstroke is about in the Absolute Universe, and Kirk Langstrom, who is the Absolute Man Bat. I want to see what happens with him because they've introduced all these different characters, and I really want to see what they do with them. But yeah, it was weird, the fact that we established a no killing rule and now he's got kind of reneged on it. So we'll see what happens. Um, it's not taking me out of the book though. Like, I'm still fucking with the Absolute Universe, the Absolute version of Batman. I like Absolute Superman. I'm in the Absolute Wonder Woman. Like, I really think that DC has some captured lightning in a bottle with the Absolute versions of these of their entire line. Green Lantern, Absolute Green Lantern's dope. The limited run on Absolute Martian Manhunter was incredible. Absolute Flash was pretty good. And so I think they captured lightning in a bottle. I want to see what they're going to do, because they're going to have another crisis event. Of course, they're going to have another crisis event because they always have another crisis event. And I want to see what happens with the Absolute Universe because that's the interesting universe. It kind of is in the same boat where Marvel did the reboot of the Ultimate Universe recently, and they're fighting the Maker and in the city and all this other stuff. I'm sad to see that the Ultimate Universe Marvel go away again, or whatever happens to it, where it disappears and gets folded away, because that was the more interesting version of Spider-Man, like the more interesting version of the Avengers. It was really well written the way that they did it, and so I really hope that Marvel and DC hold on to these alternate universes and do something with them, and preserve them in some way, shape, or form. Because I feel like there's so many different stories that need to be told with it. The Spider-Man who's married to Mary Jane Watson and has kids. I think there are more stories to tell with him as married to Mary Jane Watson with kids, than there are stories to tell without that. Like right now, Spider-Man still does feel kind of adrift. We had the entire thing with Hellgate, and all that other stuff. It just feels like it's unmoored and not really tied to anything. And now he's on to another arc. We still haven't resolved what's going on with the Hellgate thing and what happened with Spider-Man's version of the Guardians of the Galaxy. And like, there's so many unanswered things. Like I said, I wish, I hope that they keep the absolute and ultimate alternate universes of Marvel and DC respectively. All right. So he basically creates the real Poison Ivy. Like he destroys Pam Isley and basically creates Poison Ivy. And so he killed the last piece of her that could come back. And so I know that's supposed to set the story for future stuff, where now it puts her on the path of the arch villain. But I almost feel like we could have navigated around this, because we already had this. We already did this in the annual. Okay. And he understands the weight of taking a life at this point in time. But it's supposed to signify a darker turn for him, where now, and the book kind of showed, he had been making all these outreach to all of his friends that had been harmed by Absolute Bane. Absolute Bane absolutely fucked them up, bro. Like it's not even anything to joke about. What he did to the Penguin was awful. But you know, Bruce in his regular life had been trying to do outreach and reach out to Harvey Dent and reach out to the Penguin and stuff, because they were his friends that he grew up with. But during the Bane arc, Bane targeted them and absolutely mutilated them. And so they were going through their arc of being mad at him. And so he stopped. Like this is, you know, after he blew away Absolute Poison Ivy's heart, he stopped trying to engage his friends. And so I know this is supposed to signify a darker turn. And in the meantime, his mom had gone out of town somewhere to meet up with her old organization, which we find out is essentially the Court of Owls of that universe. And so either mom is a Talon of the Court of Owls, or she was the former leader of the Court of Owls. And so we're going to see what happens with that. But yeah, it's supposed to signify the darker turn. I feel like they could have done it a different way, or if they were going to have him, not do or have the killing rule, or not have the killing rule, or like they shouldn't have introduced it in the annual book is what I'm saying. Like don't introduce the no killing rule and then, you know, he's learned from it, he's learned his lesson, there's an entire emotional arc that goes with that, and then now he's about to go through it again and realize that he made his own worst villain. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, it just feels like a workaround, and not something that he wrestled with. And it comes off like I didn't break my rule, I just kind of refined it. I don't know. I think we had a pretty firm established identity for the character, and now that's up in the air again. Okay. And she's gone. Like she's gone. There's no bringing her back. I don't think they're going to be able to redeem her. She's going to be so mad at Batman that, I mean, that's going to be her animating factor. We'll see what happens. Okay. And Batman made the call that, you know, she's not redeemable. She's not worth saving anymore. And that's kind of a dark place for Batman to be. So, like I said, I get that human beings are messy and stuff, and they kind of convey that. I'm not saying it was a bad story. It really wasn't. And had the Batman, the Absolute Batman annual not existed, that storyline, that little twist where he blows her heart away and kills the last human part of her, it would have made total sense had the annual book not established that he has a no killing rule. Okay. And so at what point, and it was the ship of Theseus, where at what point do you decide a person is no longer themselves? You know, her body had been replaced, her body had been replaced by whatever this plant mutagen that she had was, and the last remaining part was her heart. And so it had replaced her completely. And so now her heart's gone. And now, is she a different person? Is she just Poison Ivy is she still Pamela Isley, just in a different form with a new perspective? How's that going to work? I think that's going to be an interesting storyline. I just wish they wouldn't have introduced the no killing stuff. And why does Batman get to make that call? And I think the emotional weight of it is going to get played out later on, when he has to reconfront. Like there's going to be a point where he has to confront the things that he is responsible for. He's already done it a little bit with the fact that Absolute Bane busted in and basically broke every bone. And I'll tell you, he broke every bone in Penguin's body. And for those that don't know, in the Absolute Universe, Batman's rogues gallery, like Two-Face, the Penguin, the Riddler, Catwoman, Killer Croc, they're all his friends. Like his circle of friends that he grew up with. And Killer Croc, I think, was the first one. Waylon was the first one to get caught up in this, and I think he didn't necessarily have anything to do with Batman as much. I think he just got abducted by Absolute Joker's company, and they experimented on him and turned him into a giant, a very large crocodile man. But then Bruce goes looking for him, and he gets captured in Arc M, and they experiment on him, essentially trying to turn him into the next Bane. And so there's a whole couple of arcs with him trying to escape Arc M, and the entire battle with Absolute Bane and blah 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 blah. But while Bane is looking for Batman after he escaped Arc M, he finds Batman's friends and does some pretty horrific shit to them, like awful. Cracks Two-Face's skull in half and burns half of his body, like holds him down in the fire and burns half of his body, breaks every bone in Penguin's body and makes him shorter. It makes his hands look like claws and flippers, and it's crazy. It's crazy work. Riddler, he gave him severe brain damage and destroyed part of his brain, and so all he can do is ask questions. Like Absolute Bane was an absolute menace. And so Batman already has the emotional weight of what happened to his friends weighing on him, because they blame him for what happened. They blame him for involving them, because that's the first people Bane went after was them, and he harmed them. And it wasn't just psychological harm; it was physical harm. They have to deal with the excruciating pain that Bane put them through. So I think it's part of the arc. I just wish they wouldn't have had that, no killing rule get introduced in the annual, unless we're supposed to just say the annual was non-canon. But I don't know why they would do that. It doesn't make any sense. Okay. So that's the Absolute Batman. Poison Ivy's always been kind of this ideological, you could almost frame her a little bit as an anti-hero, because she's just not on the side of human beings. She's on the side of the environment. Okay. She's extreme. She's not random, and she's not necessarily insane. I mean, she's more plant than person. And so her actions aren't motivated by insanity or anything. It's a preservation and a kinship with the green and stuff like that. And so there's a weird tension between her and the monstrous plant form of her. Okay. And so Batman essentially flattened her and just the threat to be defeated. And so now he's created another arch villain that he's going to have to deal with later on. Okay. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, I really wish that they would. I need some clarification. And unfortunately, the book is still ongoing. So maybe they can clarify what happens with Absolute Batman. I did mention Absolute Batman's rogue gallery. Let me show you. I'm gonna pull it up so you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about. My boy Fearless said I need to put pictures on here, so I'm gonna do it. Rogues gallery. Let's see if there's a good image that I can show you of what they actually look like. Yeah, I mean, we got Mr. Freeze and all them. Absolute Killer Croc is crazy looking, bro. Like crazy looking. And I rock with it. Like I enjoy Absolute Killer Croc. So, all right, let's go through it, because I found a page that has all the different rogues on it. So if y'all ready, if you want to see what Batman's up against, DC has kind of a special on it. I agree. This is Absolute Joker off the rip. Horrifying. He looks like some kind of demon from hell. This is Absolute Mr. Freeze. He I think he has super strength and some kind of cryogenic, like he has some kind of cryogenic where he can freeze stuff with his hands, but a lot of it has to do, he moves around like a spider and stuff, and so his cryogenesis made him physically stronger, and I think he can freeze people with his touch. There's Absolute Joker, who eats people and is just like this nightmare fuel-esque kind of villain. He is the evil in the DC universe, essentially the pervasive. He's always been here, existential kind of evil. This is absolute Killer Croc. Like I said, he's massive. As you can see, his mouth basically runs down his entire rib cage. And it's Batman's friend. As you can see, Batman is riding Killer Croc into battle. And he eventually does kind of cure him. So we're going to see what happens with that. Absolute Bane was crazy. he was already a big boy. And then off the Venom, this is how big he is. He's like 26 feet tall. And he has complete molecular control of his body. And super smarty pants, more or less. Absolute Black Mask, I forgot about him. He's a little bit smaller, but he also is a mixed martial artist, and a grappler, and he like enjoys like breaking people's arms and killing them. Like that's what he does in his downtime. He whoops Batman's ass. Like the first time they fight, he whoops Batman's ass. And there's the neo-Nazi that Batman. Remember, I talked about the neo-Nazis that Batman maimed and messed up. That was that's out of the annual. Like I said, it was just fun watching him kill neo-Nazis. It was a good time. Great time to be had. I was actually looking for Absolute Penguin. And we don't have any good looks of him in costume yet. We just have looks of him in the hospital. And what he looks like in shadow. But we don't have a ton of looks at him. What he looks like or what he's going to look like when they really do roll him out. We have a before look at him. Where he looks more normal, like a normal person. But the after has always been kind of shrouded. And so I think they're trying to preserve the shock factor. But yeah, Absolute Penguin, Bane tuned his ass up. It was actually hard to read what Bane did to him. I'm not even gonna hold you. It was really, really kind of shocking how they did him. I've never seen anybody get done filthy. Like, it's rare. I haven't seen anybody get done filthier than the Penguin in a comic book in a long time. Ozzy got fucked up. Like Ozzy got fucked up, bro. Yeah, that's Absolute Penguin after Bane put hands on him, broke every bone in his body, made him 2 feet shorter. And he's already a smaller guy, and he already had a complex about his height and his looks. And so, so Bane really played up on it and just pulverized him. Absolute Riddler. I got to find a picture of him. Bane gave him severe brain damage. But like I said, we don't know, like, I think we kind of have an idea of what Absolute Riddler is going to look like, what Absolute Edward Enigma is going to look like, more or less. But he blinded him, and Absolute Riddler had to do his own surgery, his own level of brain surgery on him, and so part of his brain is exposed in the back. Bane really tuned him up, and so we'll see what happens with Absolute Riddler. But he almost looks like a weird version of Brainiac. And I know Brainiac there's already an absolute version of Brainiac that exists, but he kind of looks like an analog for Brainiac, if I'm being real. But yeah, you could see part of his brain's exposed and everything, and gave him profound brain damage. And the sad part was he was like the most brilliant person in Batman's circle, and gave him intel and helped him a lot in terms of figuring out technology and things along those lines. So what his final look is, I want to see what his final look is going to be. Let's do Absolute Two-Face. Absolute Two-Face. And we still don't know what Absolute Two-Face is going to look like. Like, he's still bandaged up. He got messed up. And he may be the most shocking one at the end of the day. We'll see what happens. But Absolute Two-Face got hurt. He got hurt pretty bad. Third to fourth degree burns across the left side of his body. 50%. Um, they crushed his skull right down the center, crack right down the center. And so we have yet to see what the reveal is on him. I'm guessing it's going to have the skeletal face from the burns and stuff. But yeah, it's gonna be crazy looking. So we'll see what happens. I'm interested to see how they handle the absolute versions of it. Okay. But yeah, Bruce is responsible, is directly or indirectly responsible for most of the things that happen to his rogues gallery. Okay. And I don't know. I just feel like I almost feel like they just invalidated what the annual book did. So anyway, I rambled enough about that. I don't mind Batman making the hard decisions, y'all. I just mind when the story it doesn't necessarily treat it like one and it ignores things that were already established. Okay. So I've been sitting with that one for a while. So I'm gonna shift gears a little bit because I've had more than a week to think about this absolute Batman stuff. Like I said, I haven't been really touching on comic book stuff, so I got so much stored up that I want to talk about that it's gonna be hard to keep locked in on what I have on my outline for the show. So I was sitting at home and just kind of figuring out what I wanted to do in terms of content for the show. And I realized that I do want to reread The Dark Tower, and I figured I'd kind of share my journey with y'all as I reread the Dark Tower series. And for those that don't know what the Dark Tower series is, maybe this could be your jumping on point so that you can join me in it. Um, I've been a Stephen King fan since I've been younger. My One of my cousins was huge into Stephen King books and kind of put me on. And he would kind of give me the summary of the Stephen King books because my mom wouldn't buy them for me. So he would kind of give me the summary of what happened in the Stephen King books. And when I got old enough, I could go get them myself. Um, and so I'm not gonna speed run through the entire Dark Tower series. I don't think people realize what they're reading when they pick these books up. And so um I kind of wanted to give you a rundown, and hopefully this kind of sparks something in you if you want to go seek out the Dark Tower series. It's an amazing book, and it also explains a lot of Stephen King's universe that doesn't necessarily get conveyed um, in the stories, where he doesn't have the time to do the world building. He takes the time in the Dark Tower series. Okay. So we're going to set up some expectations here. If you go into thinking this is a straight up fantasy series, you're going to be confused. If you're thinking that it's going to be strictly horror, you're going to be confused too. It's a blend of fantasy, western, horror, and all kinds of other genres that get crossed into it. Okay. Um, think of it like this is Stephen King explaining his entire universe and how his entire universe works. Like what it is. Where some of these monsters that you see in his works come from. Like it gives backstory to all of this stuff. Okay. And so when Stephen King says the this is his magnum opus, it really is. Because it explains things from The Shining, it explains things from The Mist, it explains things from It, um, the Tommy Knockers, it explains Needful Things, it explains Salem's Lot. Um, and so it breaks down a lot of other stuff. So you'll see a crossover with The Shining. Okay. You'll see it kind of cross over with was it Doctor Sleep, which is like I think the sequel to The Shining. But then it crosses over into It. But then like I said, it crosses over into The Mist, and you get a chance to see where the mist creatures come from and stuff like that. Okay. So the Dark Tower is kind of the center point of Stephen King's entire fictional universe. And each story, the best way I could phrase it is each book, each world that he creates in his books represents a level on the Dark Tower. So it's a bunch of alternate universes living next to each other, and there are doorways that you can cross from one to the other if you are, adept, or you have special powers or a special connection. You can cross between the worlds and stuff like that. Um, and even they even explain what is between the worlds. There's a space, and I forgot what it's called, but there's a space between the worlds where the monsters that you would see, the monsters that you see in The Mist reside there, in the space in between worlds. Okay. But yeah, the Dark Tower is kind of the center point of Stephen King's multiverse. Okay. Not metaphorically, but structurally, it is the center point of all of that. And all those universes are built around it. Okay. And the books connect through characters, locations, concepts. Like these things all connect. Okay. And so this is the spine that everything else kind of hangs off of. This is the bone structure, the skeleton that supports the entire body of work. Okay. So the main character and the main hero is Roland. Um, Roland is not a hero. He's the main character. He's the main character of the book, but he is not a hero, because heroes are driven to save the day. Protagonists are driven to complete whatever mission or journey that they're on. Roland kind of falls more into the main character kind of protagonist, if you will. Um, he's not heroic. Okay. Um, he will use people for what to achieve his ends. And he's trying to reach the Dark Tower. He can't necessarily know why, he just knows that that's what his mission is. Okay. And so the people he meets along the way, he is always kind of faced with the choice of whether he's going to save them or kind of serve them up and sacrifice them up to his larger mission of getting to the Dark Tower. And it's kind of an ongoing struggle that he has in the books. Okay. But Roland's not necessarily there to be liked. He's not really relatable. He moves the plot forward. And that's what his goal is. He is there to move forward. He's relentless. He doesn't stop. And in the first book, he makes a decision that ends up costing somebody that's going to be close to him their lives. Okay. And he's locked in on what his mission is. So the entire concept of Ka and Katet, Ka is kind of the uniting force and stuff in that universe. He is driven to the Dark Tower, and he doesn't necessarily know why he is, but he's willing to sacrifice anything and everybody and anything to get to the Dark Tower. Okay. And so when you first start reading Roland in the book, you got to understand that. And they make it more sympathetic as they go through the books. You get a glance at his, like, he has a super tragic backstory, and it's really marked with loss and grief and stuff like that. And it kind of forged him into the person he is. But don't view Roland as a hero. He's the protagonist. He doesn't have a normal sense of morality. He has his own sense of morality. He has a code. A lot of the characters, the gunslinger, as you will, because Roland is a gunslinger. They have this. It's kind of it's almost drawn from Arthurian legend, like from the legend of King Arthur and stuff. There's a lot of elements in that installed in Roland, and so basically, he is a knight with a gun. He's a knight with a gun. Okay. And so the story isn't necessarily is Roland a good guy. It's what at what point does it cost him so much that he's willing to stop? What is he not willing to sacrifice? Okay. And so one of the concepts you need to understand, and I mentioned it before, is Ka. Ka is destiny, but it's more of an active destiny. Okay. It's your animating force. Okay. It moves things into place. It draws people together. Okay. It follows patterns and stuff. And people aren't choosing, they're being pulled towards their destiny, towards their Ka. And so Ka is kind of a multi, the best way I could say it describes a lot, because it can describe the connection of why certain groups of people have found each other and what their overall mission is. Okay. But it's an animating force. Okay. And it's almost like a will. They're on the will of Ka. Okay. Um, the reason why you want to spend time with the series, don't rush through it. Don't expect the clear conventions of horror or the clear conventions of fantasy, because it blends high fantasy, horror, science fiction, a western, some magical stuff, some young adult novel esque kind of stuff in there. It's like a big hodgepodge of different genres crossing over. There's a murder mystery, there's some gangland, like mob stuff in there. There's slice of life. Like there's a lot of different elements in the Dark Tower. And so you cannot expect genre rules because they will get broken. They'll get shattered. The thing you need to pay attention to is what's the repeating lesson? What are the repeating themes? Okay. What are the relationships of the people in the book? And what are their relationships like? Um, and what decisions are made under pressure that are bad ones? Because the book is kind of defined by bad decisions. Okay. So treat the Dark Tower series kind of like a journey that you're going on, and not just like a straight line down the road plot, because you're going to get to the end of it, and the end I'm not even going to hint at it because but the end will absolutely you are going to be presented with the choice. As the reader, you're going to be presented with the choice. That's what I'll leave it at. The thing that sticks with me about the Dark Tower is the relationship between Roman's quartet, the second quartet that he has, and quartet is the group of people that he's on the journey with. He had a group of other gunslingers that he grew up with when he was a kid, and they were on a specific mission, and then that got shattered after a major betrayal. And you know, he was kind of adrift by himself, but he ended up forming a new group of people to travel on his journey to the Dark Tower with. Okay. And listen to the bonds that are formed under pressure. Again, their mission isn't necessarily a heroic one. It's one to get to the Dark Tower. And so there are elements of it where you're like, damn, they used that person. And they use them, they juice them for what they wanted and toss them to the side. Okay. The tension. The thing with Roland is he going to choose the tower over the people that he cares about? And we know what the answer is. And that's what the tension is in the book. At what point does it become too much? And you're not going to know when or who the exact costs are, but when the costs do happen, they are kind of shocking, y'all. And there are times where it's jarring and you're actually feeling real grief because you've been with, this person or these people for this long. They've introduced them as a fully robust character, and then brutally, in a Stephen King fashion, they gone in the worst possible way happening. Okay. And so I'm probably going to break this down as I go, because there are specific moments in the series that deserve their own kind of conversations. And so as I'm going through this, I'm going to be highlighting different parts in each of the Dark Tower books that spawn their own kind of conversations ideologically and stuff like that. Like I said, I'm trying to enjoy it, and I'm really trying to get back into sitting down and reading fiction books again, because a lot of my stuff is technical know-how, and sales and all that other good stuff. And so and I used to be a really voracious reader of fiction. And I always tell people, even if you are a person who is trying to gain a knowledge, reading fiction allows you to use your imagination and think of creative ways to approach things, right? And so I'm trying to take my own advice and getting back into reading fiction, not just listening to the ebooks or whatnot, actually sitting down and reading fiction. Okay. But there are specific moments that I want to extract, and I'm going to talk about, and specific elements of the Dark Tower series that we can break down, specific interplay and relationship between the characters that I want to discuss with y'all. And so you're going to be seeing me check in with the Dark Tower books and updates from that periodically here, because I think that can be kind of a centerpiece or flagship of Blurting While Dad. So if you're a fan of the Dark Tower series, hopefully we can welcome you home, because I think that it's an amazing series. And there are parts of it that I have not read. Like, I've read all of the books, but I haven't read the comic books. And the comic books tell other stories that Stephen King wasn't necessarily able to spend time with in the novels, which sounds crazy to me, because the Dark Tower books are long. There's a lot in them. And so for little stories that give some backstory to who Roland is, and some of his old adventures and some of the old wars and stuff, I'm interested to see those. But again, I think that this might end up being one of my flagships. I'm trying to figure out what content flagships or what things I'm obsessed enough about to kind of make those recurring things of flagships for the show. The IDW Transformers may be one of them. Um, I still have my Marvel and DC content, um, and stuff like that. I haven't been able to follow a lot of independents as much as I used to. And so I may find an independent book that I obsess about and I want to talk about, but I think it's probably going to be Dark Tower for a while. And so we'll see what happens if I can make that one of my flagship things, maybe IDW Transformers and stuff like that. But anyway, like I said, I'm going to be going through the Dark Tower books. If you're interested in that kind of stuff and you really want to know the backstory behind the Stephen King, the things that underpin the Stephen King universe, stick around for that, because that's what we're going to be talking about in future episodes. Last thing. So before anybody asks, I haven't seen the Dark Tower movie. Like, I was excited about it, but then I sat down and thought about it. I'm like, do I really want to see a Dark Tower movie? Because you cannot tell a robust story of the Dark Tower in a single movie. Hell, you may not even be able to break down one of the books in a single movie if we're keeping it 100. And so I was more in line with, I hope they have a Dark Tower show, because a Dark Tower television series, now that is something we can get into, because now we can spend some time. We can actually spend some time and establish these characters, because the Dark Tower, again, is a journey. And I really, I hope that they do develop into a show. I know they've been teasing it. All right, so I had to pull it up. Mike Flanagan is developing a multi-season faithful TV adaptation of the Dark Tower for Amazon, intended to run for 5 seasons, followed by 2 standalone movies. Okay, so we'll see what happens, y'all. I'm really excited. If that's the case, I'm all on that one. And so that might be one of my flagship pieces of content if this actually happens. But they've been talking about a Dark Tower television series for a long time. Initially, they were supposed to be on HBO, and that never manifested. And so Mike Flanagan has acquired the rights to develop a TV series based on the Dark Tower. So I want to see. I'm interested to see what happens with it. Like I said, I'm interested to see what happens. So if they do a Dark Tower TV show, you're gonna bet your bottom dollar I'm gonna be covering it on this show. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, they've been teasing the Dark Tower for years and years and years. Like I said, when Game of Thrones was really hopping on HBO, they were talking about having a Dark Tower series. I am firmly convinced that if they had gone through with the Dark Tower series on HBO, it probably would have found a similar fan base to Game of Thrones. I'm not saying it would have been as big as Game of Thrones, but I think a Dark Tower series on HBO would have found an audience immediately and a rabid fan base. Okay, so we'll see what happens. Mike Flanagan has a lot of other stuff going on, because he's developing Stephen King's Carrie for Amazon too. So we'll see what happens. I'm interested. I'm not holding out. I'm not like I said, I'm not putting any bets on it, because they've been teasing the Dark Tower television series for a minute. But if they launch it, if it happens, then this show is going to be covering it on a weekly basis. So anyway, that's what I got. Next week, I'll probably be back to politics and hopefully the new season of JoJo. We can talk about that. See, we can talk some Still Ball Run and kind of chop it up about that. But anyway, I do appreciate y'all. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening, letting me nerd out about comic books again. I had to take a break from the politics, y'all. I will be back at it next week. Talk to y'all later. Peace.